What is up, players and pimps? We're back in Eden Prairie again. And I think Paul's about to tell us what is the dictionary definition of a resident.
You have to be a resident to speak at open podium. Let's look up the definition of the word resident. Noun, one who resides in a particular place permanently or for an extended period. To live in a place permanently or for an extended period. Here's my rather obvious question. Well, before the obvious question, let me make a statement. At no time throughout all of this, all of these phone calls that I made to the city of Eden Prairie, at no time did they tell me you must be a resident.
Because why would they? It's the most obvious thing ever. Why would they entertain the fact that you're not a resident of their district? You're not a resident of the city. Because it's obvious, Paul. Why would they want to hear from non-residents of their city? If I went a city over to mine and tried to sit down at a council open mic, try to have my say, and they said, no, wait. Who are you and where are you from? I would say, I'm from the town over. And they'd be like, well, why are you here? And I said, well, I want to have my say on how your city conducts itself. And they said, well, you don't pay taxes here. What investment do you have? What vested interest do you have in a city that you don't even live in? It's obvious, Paul.
To speak at open podium. They just kept dancing around it. And every time I would ask them to sign me up, they would change the subject and say, well, let's get you in touch with so-and-so here at the police. At no time did they tell me you must be a resident.
Because, Paul, we established the fact that you are mentioning the fact that you're being murdered and would have them on eggshells. They wouldn't really know and understand what you actually mean by that. We do on this channel. We get a bit of a better feeling for what you mean in a weird way. But some woman on the phone who's just like, administration or behind a desk doesn't necessarily know what you're talking about. And she might think that you're physically being assaulted, you're being held against your wishes, and someone might be trying to harm you.
Now, having said that, let's go back to the first 57 years of my life, where I traveled this entire country and I addressed city councils all over the place, legislators, etc. In fact, as I've been sitting in this car...
Yeah, not every single city council is going to be the same, Paul. They're not going to all have the same rules. Like you would find it's probably a mix. Some city districts and councils and cities say, yeah, sure, like you're not from here, but we'd like to hear your input. We've got time to fit you in. And some are like, no, you're not a resident of this area. We don't want to waste our time listening to you.
At no time when I called up these legislators who were all from other states, because the one I haven't called is our legislator, because Minnesota legislators are useless. Anyone who's watched my videos and any of my channels over the last many years knows this. And can you guess who my representative is on the House Committee on Workforce, Education and the Workforce? It is Ilhan Omar. That's what I have for a representative.
Oof. That's a rough one, Paul, I've got to say.
Ilhan Omar, the person who calls to drive all the Jews into the sea, is my representative as a homeless person in Minnesota. How far do you think I'm going to get there? So I haven't wasted that phone call yet, but I called all the others on that committee, and I've called
I do agree with Paul. That would be, that call would go nowhere.
A whole bunch of other people. If I haven't learned that this case has been broken from being bounced around in this car the last 6 months, I might just open this thing up, and guess what? The whole cover is going to shred, and I will no longer have a computer. You must have information and facts to make good decisions. Isn't that exactly what I put in my written...
Did you have all good information and facts when you probably bounced this thing across the car in a rage? Was that like a well-informed choice, Paul? Probably not.
Response to human resources. If the backstabber is going to lie and misrepresent herself to me, and not present herself to me as the person she actually is, I have no idea how I'm supposed to relate to this person. Duh. You have to have accurate facts to make informed decisions. And HR wasn't going to gather those to make an informed decision.
So either when they refer him to the police because he's being murdered, and then he gets onto the police and they refer him onto social services, it's basically they want to find him a therapist. They just want to find him a therapist because the web he weaves with this story is just so complicated and entangled. It's like there's no way anyone could really possibly pass this out outside of doing many videos analyzing this shit. You can't do that in a 5-minute discussion. It's like, well, we're going to refer this guy on to a therapist or someone he can sit down to and talk to.
Because I'm saying this is post-production, but I'm going
to... Oh, Lord. I don't think I've ever seen that singlet on him. So that's a first. I think he got a whole bunch of donated clothes. Like, he's in a lot of, like, weirdly new stuff. So he's obviously had a donation of clothes from someone. Because that big yellow top is just it just looks like it looks kind of new, and it looks like it's been folded on itself a few times, and it's just been sitting for a while, and then he's just like uncrumbled it, threw it on backwards, and gone into Eden Prairie. Whereas, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff I've never seen him in before, so he's obviously had a donation.
I'm going to give you a little bit more of what that city manager said, and try to note how at the end he just turned around and left. And again, I understand that he has to work with the city council and all that, but what did he say? He said, when the city council receives email, it is, quote, their choice whether or not they respond. So they do not feel a professional, official obligation.
Well, why would they? You're not a resident of their city. And the information that you're giving them is like probably a very long screed of like rambling nonsense that I don't know if they can do anything about. Obviously, your end goal, whether or not you're making it clear, is to talk to the city prosecutor, but whether or not that prosecutor has the time for something like this, I'm thinking no, Paul. It's just way too abstract, way too kooky for them to ever really take it seriously. They think that you might be pulling a prank on them.
To respond to anybody who contacts them. It's their choice. In other words, it's discretionary. What is another word for discretionary? Discriminate? It's discrimination. I will respond to you. I'm not going to respond to you. I'm going to treat you differently than I treat this person.
Well, if they respond to everything and everyone, Paul, they'll probably never get ahead of anything. They've got to do their job. And yeah, there comes to a point where, okay, this is not as serious as this thing. This thing is, we've got a blown out water main underneath the city. It's causing havoc. And I've got 15 emails about this from different residents of the city. And then you've got your one that's just an absolute diatribe of nonsense. What are you going to choose? What are you going to choose to reply to, Paul? What would you choose to reply to? Well, obviously, I know the answer to that one.
It's called discrimination. Straight out of the mouth of the city manager of Eden Prairie, Minnesota. At the end, when he's saying, I recall an email.
You couldn't hammer this into Paul, no matter what. You could be right there and, whispering this in his ears or shouting it in his ear. He wouldn't hear it. Like, he just would not hear it. You could not convince him of your point of view. You would get probably so bored and so tired that you'd eventually come around to his way of thinking just to get out of the conversation.
Email. And then the very last thing he said before he spun around and walked into the room away from me, apparently in front.
The central focus of that email was a full color attachment that summarized my murder. How can anyone actually read that? Yeah, if this is what you're really leading with here, Paul, then of course it's going nowhere, especially when you kind of pass it out a little bit and find out how weirdly abstract and odd it is. There's nothing they can do with that, Paul.
Frustration was, this was something about your job, right?
Yeah, it was about your job, so what do you want them to do about it?
After this many contacts with these people, when I'm very focused about what I'm talking about, it should be clear to everybody there that, again, I'm not some stereotypical based on their bigotry, their ignorance. I am not some stereotypical homeless person who thinks the police is going to somehow get their job back or something like that. This isn't about being fired. It is about murder. Murder. This
is the crux of the problem, is that no one really understands what he means when he says, I'm being murdered. I'm in the act and the process of attempted murder, and then it will become murder. It's like, how long has this been going on, Paul? Well, I've been fired for like seven months now. And it's attempted murder. Like, are agents of this company actively pursuing you and stalking you throughout the night, trying to drive you off the road when you're driving? Like, Paul's like, no, not that I can recall, not that I noticed, but he'll probably have stories of like some sort of stalker that he thinks is an AMS henchman. And then well, then I don't understand. How are you effectively being murdered? Were you working in some sort of processing plant where you're exposed to chemicals over a certain amount of time, what's the story? I guess Aaron Brockovich comes to mind, where it was this company causing, malicious damage to their employees, or was it drinking water? I can't remember. Something like that, like a Flint, Michigan story, where, yeah, it is like through the process of this company doing wrong and not remedying the problem or not being held accountable, they were effectively murdering people, so to speak. Causing the cause of effect would eventually become, through negligence, through an industrial criminal negligence was causing harm to these people. Whereas Paul's story is this through the act of him being fired and potentially losing all these weird little benefits that didn't really apply to him, but he took advantage of. He is now being stripped of all those benefits, stripped of his paycheck, stripped of all this that he's worked for. And now his decline and his like helplessness, like he's reverted into a man baby who can't really help himself, is like a negligence on their part, because they should know that this man is completely helpless and can't do much for himself other than like he's obviously doing fine. He is doing fine. He's okay. There's nothing wrong with this man. He needs to get out of the car and walk around a little bit more, but other than that, he's fine. So I don't know even what approach you could take with Paul's story. And like you steel man his argument. You bring his case forward in good faith and try argue it from like no cynicism. You just try to argue it for Paul. I might do that video one day, is like try to back every claim he makes and make the most charitable argument for him in a way that makes sense to someone, and see if I can do it. But at the moment, I'm just like, how do you explain this to anyone and make it make sense? Because he is not a child. He's not a baby. Like, he can fend for himself. He can get back up on his feet. He's done it in the past. He can get another job. He's done it in the past. Like, everything that he's claiming here, he's been able to turn the ship around and get back on track again through a lot of help. But he has been able to do it. So this idea that the murder is because AMS has fired him and there's just no way back. There's no way he can come back from this at any level. So he won't do any low skilled jobs. He won't be a shelf stack. He won't do that. He looks down his nose at that. That's like almost as clear, because he's Mr. Scientist Man with like highly educated apparently. So that kind of career path is like cut out. So he's cut out about 80% of jobs, and then there's that higher tier 20% that's left that he thinks is like, befitting of him, and he that's the only stuff he'll take. But honestly, he was in a call center position. I mean, there's a lot of people who do a good job at that and they see it as a serious career, but it is like, it does I guess it has a stink to it where, yeah, it is a bit of a slacker job. People do it maybe to supplement their income, or as a second job, or do a night shift and do the dumb call center thing to go through a script about warranties like every 10 to 20 minutes with someone. Whereas, again, like you just can't make sense of this story. This person has no like agency in his own life. He's just useless. Like, he's just helpless in this world. And he's a very intelligent man, and he's so smart, and kind of looks down his nose at a lot of people. But for some reason, he just can't figure out this homeless world. He just can't do it. Everything is too much, and there's too many problems, and he can't quite figure it out. So he's helpless. And through that, AMS is willingly allowing him to die, because they should know that this man has no agency. He has no way of helping himself. Yeah, it's an insane position. It's hard to even argue for. Like, it seems almost impossible. Outside of, he is a mental deficient who doesn't really understand the world he lives in, and he probably should be in a care home or a special hospital, maybe committed, until he can maybe stand on his own 2 feet. But that's not really the case here. I know it's not the case. This guy can look after himself quite fine. It's that he doesn't want to. He just wants something to yell at. He wants something to scream at and be angry about. And like that's his life fuel, of like shaking his fist at the clouds. So all this is just a mask. It's just a smoke screen to effectively scream and yell at the world. Because even when he was employed with AMS, who was his big baddie? It was the government. It was the state government of Minnesota, and through other various foundation and charities that might be related to the government, he would also scream at them.
It doesn't matter how the crime occurred. The point is, this person had the intent, the motive, the desire to kill this person, and they took the action that they knew or should have known was going to lead to the death of this person.
They could never know that, Paul. They could never know that. How could they know that you're, especially if you did such a good job there for them, and you would have ran their business so well if you were the head manager there or the boss? How in the hell are they meant to know that putting you, firing you from this job would have the consequences of your death? That's not even close to happening and doesn't even look like it's happening.
Is a question of murder. It is a criminal matter. It has nothing to do with my job. This just happened to have taken place at my workplace.
I mean, yeah, that's going to be then a video I might just like theory craft and maybe write out a little bit of a script just to maybe relate his story and make a little more sense. It's not going to make sense, but maybe you could phrase it in a way that's a little bit more digestible. So Paul has nothing in the way of like a digestible story. It's too complicated, it's too abstract, it's too weird, it's too individual to Paul. But maybe there's a way you could probably phrase it that people might be sympathetic to and also might want to hear him out on. And this is this is the place Paul will never arrive to.
Do these people, Eden Prairie, if there was a mass shooting in a workplace at Eden Prairie, are they going to send all the city officials down to that workplace and all these people are traumatized like I am?
Oh my God. See, this is what he does. And whether I think it's on purpose, but maybe it's not. He's just flying off the handle. But he's constantly talking about gun-related violence in and around the AMS building or something related to, his death. So he's going to blow his brains out because of AMS or something like that. It's just like he invokes a lot of that imagery and he skirts around that fine line of not really saying it, but saying it. Where, what if there was a big, shootout at this AMS building, and what if someone did come in and, create havoc and possibly take a lot of lives? He's invoked that many, many times, and you're going to get yourself in trouble with that. Like this constant, that's where the Pauling Down video I made was a lot. There was a lot of that rhetoric, and that was only over maybe 2 or 3 videos. I could pull a lot of rhetoric out of that, where he's saying, what would happen if this amount of gun violence broke out in and around this work? And, he would be very gentle in the way he would phrase it. So he wouldn't say it directly, but yeah, he invokes this a lot. And it's really unsettling, and 9 times out of 10, all these guys are just full of hot gas, and Paul is definitely one of them. But maybe there is that, that one time where the dude that's ranting into the camera is absolutely deadly serious about this shit.
PTSD for the rest of their lives. Are they going to go up to all those people and say, when they try to say, the shooter, he's in there, he's in HR, he's in...
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. It's ridiculous, Paul. Like, you just take it too far. I'm guessing the head honchos and the people around the situation of his firing, who maybe watch his videos, maybe not these videos, understand that there is no real threat in Paul. I don't think he's ever mentioned having any firearms or weapons or anything like that, that I know of. What's in the storage locker, who knows? So maybe they know that he might not pose a real threat. So they kind of let this kind of conversation go. That, or they just don't know about it. They just never watch these videos. But he's constantly mentioning this shit. He's constantly alluding to it. He's taking it right up to the line in hypotheticals, like, what if...
The officer in the photocopier or whatever he is. Are the city officials going to send a SWAT team in to stop that person? Or are they going to say to the person who's traumatized and was just shot at, maybe got shot, we don't deal with workplace issues. This is a civil matter. Why does that city manager have a job and I don't? I would like an answer to that question. Here's the audio of him making these pointless, irrelevant statements. And one other thing before I do. Throughout all this filming, on at least 4 occasions, people asked me what my name was. For all the efforts I've tried to reach Eden Prairie, by phone, by email, by sending an email to all these people, going down, all the things I've done, my website, videos, how can these people not even know my name after all this time? 6 months and know my name? That alone tells you how much they care about this. Let alone the fact that they still haven't even figured out what the problem is that I'm describing. This has nothing to do with my job. That is a civil matter. This has to do with murder and the intent to murder.
Yeah, no one can really understand what you mean, Paul. It's just too hard. It's too difficult. And the way you explain it is way too long-winded and way too odd that no one can really get a good beat on what you're actually saying, because they're not really thinking of you as a helpless man-child baby who's basically has to fend for itself. They're thinking of you as a 56-year-old man. And this is where the disconnect happens, is why can't this man help himself?
Murder, that is a criminal matter. My question is, the email that I sent out to all these people and the human rights liaison, Raja, did they ever get it? Because I got no responses from them, and I'm accustomed to getting responses from professionals. I'm homeless, and I respond to all my emails at work.
How long ago did he send this? Like, how many emails did he send, and how long ago was this? Like, sometimes, there is a delay, like, even if it's an important question. I know I've had many an email that is, like, very, like, urgent. I need an urgent reply, and it's like, it's fallen over a weekend, and then, like, I don't hear back from them till, like, midweek the next week, and it's like, fuck, dude, I really needed to hear about this, like, 7 days ago.
For all those years, why didn't any of them respond to me? Did they get my email, or are they just irresponsible?
I recall an email, but I think you got a response from the police chief.
I mean, a response from them. I sent an email to the...
Yeah, he got a reply through the police chief because he's mentioning murder all the time, and it's gone, like, to a sergeant. Like, this is not, some deputy or something like that. This is not some, beat cop. It's the sergeant is wasting time on this, and according to him, he heard him out.
Council persons. I copied Haja Jean. Okay. And I got no response whatsoever. And I'm talking about a very serious crime.
Yeah, I think if the police chief followed up with you, that's the person who you would want to contact. That's who you want to talk to.
That's law enforcement. I need law interpretation. What I wanted was for them to compel the city attorney's office.
So they read.
Yeah, go get a lawyer, Paul. Well, no lawyer will talk to me.
They read every email, so it's their choice if they reply or not. But I'll tell them, you can resend your email. And
it's bad form to not respond to, especially if it's someone who just seems like an untouchable loser, some homeless guy who just.
Oh boy. I don't even think, like, the homeless angle even, like, 9 times out of 10, I don't think the homeless angle even comes into play, because Paul is just obsessed with being, like, a lowly, discriminated homeless man. Like, he's obsessed with that idea because he's got a chip on his shoulder. The world's out to get him. But I think, like, 9 times out of 10 in these discussions, it's like the homeless aspect is not really even an issue. It's not the core issue. It's not even in play for most people. You mentioned that he's homeless, and people are like, oh, it might take it down a little bit. It might skew their opinions a little bit because obviously there's a lot of problems of mental health in that sphere. But honestly, I don't think it plays as much as Paul thinks it does.
Outperformed everyone in that office for 9 years until these people.
I believe
yeah, this poor guy just doesn't know what the hell this dude's talking about. He's talking about, like, the most exemplary employer of all time.
I was in touch with you because you were talking about, was it about the job that you had in the city and you want someone to investigate the job you had in the community? I kind of remember the scene.
Well, the thing is, they're interpreting it that way. They're interpreting it as if I'm trying to, like, get my job.
Yeah, it's this weird semantics where it's like, well, the police enforce the law, but I need someone to interpret the law. It's all about interpretation, and I need whoever the prosecutor is to hear the story and interpret the story to my liking.
To anybody there.
Oh, but that's what the police think. It's like you calling it a civil matter, whereas I'm saying no, it's not a civil matter. If the best.
You're not dead, boy. How does it make sense? You're talking to, like, what looks like a police officer there. Like, how does that even make sense? It's this attempted murder. It's like, are they following you? Are they intimidating you? Are they trying to drive you off the road? Have they taken shots at you? What is the story of the attempted murder? No, it's through this long process of not being able to properly look after myself because I'm an invalid man baby, and I'm, like, abandoned in this car, and because of AMS, because American Music Supply did this to me, I am now like that. That's the best read I can get on it.
The example I give is if there's laws that allow you to move company funds into your personal bank account, that doesn't make it legal for you to embezzle.
I'm going to go into this with you.
Sure, understood. But some of the people you heard talking to, after I went to that desk and I sat down and I started talking to you, they called the...
Because it's always funny to listen to stuff removed from something like that. So when he brings it into the real world like he did, I get angry again, because you are talking to real people. They are actually willing to hear you out to an extent, but then you bring these retarded, like, ridiculous premises and logic that has no basis behind it into the mix, and it's so peculiar that you're effectively wasting these people's time, but you're getting so adamant about it that there's no way they can really help you. There's no way they can do anything for you, Paul, when it's this retarded.
The police, and 2 police officers came in, and that's who I was chatting with. And throughout that time, there were other police officers. Now, during a city council meeting, you always have a couple police officers to maintain order and safety. But they were called in specifically because somebody was filming with a camera, talking to himself, and he looked kind of rough. He might, oh my God.
Yeah, Paul, you by your own admission, you stink like shit. You go in, and I'm going to say it's by design. Like at this point, no doubt in my mind, from what I've heard from people in and around these areas where like people can actually get showers, people can be bathed, is that he can't be bothered dealing with these charities and foundations because they've rubbed him raw in the past for whatever slight transgression they've put across him. So he kind of does it on purpose. I want to say that he really smells very bad, and he's quite offensive to be around in terms, but it's too like it's his way of passively getting back at people. He's kind of a passive aggressive guy.
He might be homeless. Please, send the police. You're not sleeping in there, are you?
Yeah, he puts so much emphasis on this, but I'm thinking that's like not even close to the problem they would have with him.
Do you see? Remember the definition of the word discrimination, to treat one person differently than you treat others. Like American Musical's play did. They gave the backstabber anything she wanted. They talked to her. They gave me nothing. They took everything.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the backstabber. This is all about the backstabber, right?
That I spent more than half a century accomplishing and acquiring. They took it all, everything. And they never talked to me once. Discrimination. Treating one person differently than you treat another. If I had been wearing a suit and I walk in and I start talking to the...
He's lived a life of no accountability. So when anything at any time fails, it doesn't matter if it's AMS, doesn't matter if it's car wash, doesn't matter if it's a charitable foundation or a city government. When everything or something fails in his life, to whatever degree it is, it's never anything to do with Paul. It's not his issue. It's not his problem. He didn't do anything wrong. There's some external circumstance that has influenced what has happened to him, and it's beyond his control, and there's nothing he can do about it. So he needs to rage against it.
The camera, because when the police showed up, I was still speaking very calmly. Hadn't gotten upset, hadn't hit the wood there. They came in way before that. They came in because of what I look like, because I haven't had a shower in 6 months, what I smelled like. That's why, because homeless...
Could have been a factor. I could believe that. It's like this guy stinks to high heaven. He is ranting, he's raving, he's being kind of confrontational. Not too confrontational, but he's also saying some weird shit about Jeffrey Dahmer pouring acid into a child's head and using it as a sex slave. Why is he saying that out loud? It's kind of like there are like maybe young people in this building, maybe there are people who just don't want to hear that. Can you come over and get in position to tackle this dude?
People must be crazy and dangerous. They can't be more professional than an elected city council. I answered all my...
You're not showing that you're not crazy and dangerous. You're literally going in and talking about Jeffrey Dahmer's sex crimes in a public space, filming people being irrational and like smacking the ground, smacking a chair. You know, it doesn't line up with the way you want to present yourself, Paul. You do seem crazy and you do seem dangerous. There was a point where I'm saying, all right, he's going to get himself arrested here. Well, good luck in the clink.
My emails at work over 7 years. Did you hear the excuse they gave me, if you can call that an excuse, for why these people never responded to me? And these people are probably running for re-election. For some of them, it's usually half and half every election. So when I started talking to this police officer and a member of the fire department, very nice people, I enjoyed speaking with them, but I knew what they were doing. What they were doing, it's like a variation on good cop, bad cop in a way, except that they were both good. They're basically talking to me, distracting me.
You know, they're trying to de-escalate the situation, Paul, so you don't cause a scene, you don't go crazy, and they don't have to grab you and possibly get a lot of body odor on them from you, like your sweat, and like they don't know what's going on with you, what sort of like communicable diseases you have that would get to them. So yeah, like they're kind of trying to de-escalate and not cause a scene.
Because they're going to be worried, oh my gosh, the homeless guy, he's going to come in and make a scene. All I wanted to do was film those people.
You did make a scene, dude. You did make a scene. People were very uncomfortable. People were telling you to settle down and be, just be quiet. If you can talk to your diary, you can record yourself, but don't start yelling and slapping chairs and making all sorts of weird allegations.
And get in my car and limp back here. I'm not there to cause a scene. What good?
Limp, bro. You were skipping up those stairs. I made a point of that. I watched that.
What's that going to do? But when they look at this and they...
And then he was like kneeling on the ground because he wanted to film this dumb and Holy Grail skit. And he's there for like at least 5 minutes. And if you've got mobility issues, it's just not possible.
Know me, that's what they think. If I walked in a suit with a $500 haircut, they wouldn't think I'm going to go in and make a scene. But hey,
if you conducted yourself in the same way, you could be smelling like, you know, you got your tactical body soap and, you know, a really good haircut and looking sharp as. But if you're still conducting yourself like that, screaming and shouting and having this camcorder in people's faces, yeah, I would think they would react the same way.
what do you know? When you look at people who do cause all these scenes and go on mass shootings and stuff, they look a whole lot more normal than I do, don't they? They look just like anybody else. You wouldn't think twice about them. That's why they're so dangerous. That's why the backstabber is so dangerous. The point I've been trying to make all along. Just because somebody gets riled up and raises their voice when they should because something atrocious is happening doesn't mean they're a bad person or that they're any form of a threat.
No, you are a pretty bad person. I think I've come to that conclusion, Paul. You're a very immoral, unethical, irresponsible, childlike person. Can't seem to accept any responsibility for his own life and wants to blame the world around himself. Yeah, I kind of wanted to, when I first started watching these videos, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, you know, I didn't really know much about what was going on, but it was like, well, you got to keep watching and you got to keep listening to these stories. And eventually it gets weirder and weirder. And it's like you start questioning why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? What's happening in your life that's making it this way? And then nothing really connects. The story is too outrageous, and then you start to learn that this is really not a good human being. This is about, like, you know, talks about the, you know, the apostate church and being biblically damned and all this sort of thing. Well, you're about as damned as it gets, Paul.
We do things. We get passionate. We get upset when you ban is so dangerous. The point I've been trying to make all along. Just because somebody gets riled up and raises their voice when they should because something atrocious is happening doesn't mean they're a bad person or that they're any form of a threat. In fact, those are the people who are most likely to have your back in an emergency.
Oh, okay.
Because we do things. We get passionate. We get upset when you should get upset about something. Those are people you can trust and rely on. Not somebody who sits there with some fake smile on their face all day, every day, while they're stabbing everyone to death in the back. But that's who American Musical Supply wanted to keep, and they wanted to get rid of this guy, who looked a lot better on March 14th than I do after 6 months without a shower. I don't smell as good as I did then. This is just the city of Eden Prairie. Over the last 6 months, I've tried dealing with Hennepin County, state of Minnesota, legislators, attorneys, the news media. I've tried dealing with what you're seeing could be ported over to any of those people. The sum total assistance or sincere concern I've gotten from any of these people is zero. And that's the problem. There is no heart in these people. They're dead inside. I'm dying. They're already dead. They're just walking zombies, dressed in nice suits. So what good are they? What good are they? Remember when that police department threw all those people out of that hotel? Who was it who went to try to help them and save their lives? And what day did I learn about that? What day?
Tried to help them? Did you actually help them? I know it was one of your, like, projects, but I don't think you ever helped anyone.
I find out about it on my way from work to our holiday party in January. I stopped off at the dollar store, which was right next door to where we had our holiday party. And in the dollar store was one of those women with children who was in that hotel, and she told me what happened. And when I went into that holiday party, everyone witnessed it. The HR person witnessed it. I went straight to the HR person, and I said, "Oh my God, these people need help so badly." And I asked her, "Is it inappropriate if I go around and ask people to try to help?" I didn't end up doing that. I didn't want to bring down the party.
I love how he sets up his own trip mines. He trips over his own mine every time.
But that's how heightened my emotions were, my worry and concern for these people. One of my very favorite people in that hotel. I mean, not a friend at all, but he actually worked at the hotel, so I talked to him a lot. He was a nice guy. Not someone I would hang out with, but I liked him.
Yeah, you wouldn't be caught dead with him, but, you know, he was a personable guy.
He was found in a car with a needle in his arm after they threw him out. That's one down.
What did one have to really do with the other, Paul? Like, yeah, you could have that interpretation, but you could also have that interpretation of, well, he was a lifelong junkie, and maybe that hit was his last hit, and he just happened to be out of that hotel at the time when it happened. Like, it could have just happened where he was, you know, needle in his arm in the hotel if it never closed. But Paul leaps, he jumps to this conclusion.
After the police put their efforts and public resources into throwing all those people out into the street. They didn't help us when we were in there being terrorized. When Extended Stay America was screwing all of us. Remember, I'm an old hotelier. If I had run a company the way that Extended Stay America ran that place, I would be in peril of criminal prosecution myself. The police served.
What hotel chain did you work for, Paul? I want to know. I want to see what kind of legacy you left and how much you were mentioned and what kind of accolades this company gave you. And because you did such a good job and you did it so well, that surely, like, there's some sort of mention of you. There's a mention of your achievements while at this company. So why not throw it out there, Paul? Let the world see that you are actually so good at this damn job.
Them to throw all those people out into the street. But when I go to them and tell them that one of their businesses up on that hill is murdering one of their employees, what do? Nothing. Except this variation on good cop, bad cop. I enjoy speaking to both of them. They're both very nice. I support.
Yeah, he always does this. Like, oh, they're really nice people, and one of the officers set up a meal at was it McDonald's or Burger King, and right, I thank him for that. I thank him so much. But also, it's just he was trying to distract me. He was just trying to lead me astray because he just wanted to, uh, get me off the scent of the bigger picture.
Support the police. I support fire. They put their life at risk for us, and anyone who
You support fire, Paul. That doesn't sound good.
who's willing to do that for me, I've got to do everything I can to return the favor for them and their families. So anybody who thinks I'm going to walk in there and start shooting up the place doesn't understand human nature. I'm the guy who, if someone does walk
Well, can you stop fucking saying stuff like that? Stop with these hypotheticals. Come up with something else that isn't so inflammatory. So I like fire.
in a nice suit and expensive hairdo with an AK-47, I'm the most likely person to tackle that person, even if it kills me. Yet these people are worried that I'm the guy who's going to do that. Why? Because they can smell me. Because they can see me not having a shower in 6 months.
Yeah, some maniac comes in, AK ready. He's got a M15 or whatever, and he's about to unload, and he's like, "Damn, what's that smell? Oh, oof, I'm gonna rethink this thing. I'm gonna put this thing back in my trench and walk out, and go live a very Christian life."
This is just simple-minded prejudice, bigotry,
Yeah, Paul saves the day.
hatred, ostentatophobia, which is a variant of racism. It's the same thing. Our species just can't seem to get over this.
Yeah, it's like it's a fake word, but it's a better word. It's a better word than they came up with. So that it was like hobophobic, which was dumb. Like, hobo has its own bad connotations to it. But I kind of like Paul's fake word better. But now because it's discrimination, it's tantamount to racism on a very severe scale. So it's the same sort of thing.
And the worst offenders of all tend to move away from the rabble, the untouchables in the caste system, and you move out to a place and you create something like Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
Yeah, you might not be wrong on that one, Paul. They might have created this little place, and it's this Eden away from the streets of George Floyd, which is a pretty miserable place by all accounts. So yeah, maybe that was the point. They're getting pushed away from the city, and now they're in this little enclave. But you're the one little fly in the ointment.
And then you start calling in the businesses. And which businesses want to be there in this lawless place? The ones who want to break the law. Do you see the pattern yet?
Oh, I'm seeing it,
That's
Paul.
what-
I just saw it. I got my hand binoculars out, and then I put them to my eyes, and I looked around, and then I saw the truth.
What's going on? So I stayed and I talked to those people. What they were basically doing was trying to talk me down, calm me down, which is cool. That's why I stayed and talked to them, because I needed calming down. But I wasn't going to make a scene, or I wasn't even going to go into the chambers.
I needed to calm down, but I wasn't making a scene. Okay.
There's no point. I can't be on open podium, so what's the point? I wanted to film them and hit the road. But I stayed and talked to them. What did they do, though? The whole time I talked to them, they did listen to what I had to say. But in the end, the only thing they offered, and they were very kind and generous, if they follow through with it, it was all oriented towards social services.
Yeah, because you need mental health, Paul. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. So if it's not a real murder and it's not a real crime, which they have established, they're going to try to refer you on to some sort of therapy, counseling, or possibly get you in a padded room.
Social services at best, if they worked, which they don't. I spent 6 years doing a YouTube channel.
Don't motherfuck them, because guess what? Where are these shirts coming from, Paul? Where are the shirts coming from? Where are the phone cards coming from?
The fraud and the absurdity of social services in Minnesota. I have 9 years experience with this, and this is how much help I've received in 9 years. I ain't going to get any great amount of help now. Who knows? I might get a car battery. I might get something here or there. But
Oh, yeah, there's like another charitable mechanic he goes to sometimes that helped him with the Cougar. So it's like he will go on the screeds, but then he'll just quickly rephrase it to say, well, some of them might help me, but all in all, they're kind of useless.
nothing can save my life because I've already been murdered. Everything that I have done with my life for 57 years is already gone. It's gone.
Again, I can never really get a straight answer out of Paul on the Californian storage. I know he saved the Minnesota one for another month, but the Californian one is still a mystery, because this should be past the point of no return, where, what was it, 340 just for Californian storage? So is there any way that that's still he's still paying for that? Because I feel like he's past the point of no return, but he is selling stuff still, so maybe he's throwing everything he can just to pay those bills again. But every time I think it's completely that whole Californian storage is done, he'll say, I've got one more month with it, and that's it.
Anymore. American Musical Supply stole it from me. So the best that they could do is put some tubes in me and, someone in a coma in a hospital, keep me alive a little longer, but I can't have any purpose to my existence anymore. All these projects, all these...
I don't know. I think you've found the purpose, Paul. It's to rail against the world, rail against anything that you can.
profit centers, the home studio, everything I was going to do in my life is obliterated. All the gear, everything is gone. I have nothing left. I have this. Everything's gone. All my microphones, all my drums, all my synthesizers, all my MIDI controllers, everything is gone.
Absolutely everything, Paul. We absolutely 100% sure about it, because I feel like in another 2 months we're going to get another storage run, and then it's like, well, I'm down to my best stuff now, and it's just always like, no, well, you weren't really honest about that one, were you, Paul?
Because of American musical supply, which is my point. If somebody causes that much devastation to another human being, they should have a SWAT team down there.
And he has made it's the new end date of his life is going to be end of October. So by end of October, he's going to be 6 feet under.
If I went out and caused as much harm as American Musical Supply has caused me, deliberately and intentionally, if I did that to any of the 5.5 million residents in Minnesota, do you think I would just be left alone to walk around, and I'm never going to have the police come up and not just knock on my window while I'm sleeping, cuffs on me, and take me to a very sterile room and start asking me some hard questions on camera? Do you not think that would happen if I went out and just picked someone
on camera, off camera, on camera, off camera,
ran out of the phone book, and I absolutely obliterated their life, their family bloodline? I just wiped them off the face of the earth, like all these genocides did with the people in their concentration camps. If I did that to anybody in the state, do you think for a minute I would never get one visit from the police?
Wiped out all the family bloodline. I think you've got one sister that passed, and then you've got, I think, a brother and a sister that are alive, and then your parents passed maybe 10 years ago. So, like, your bloodline exists, Paul. It exists, and I think there might be grandchildren too. So your bloodline continues, just not directly through you. You are not passing on your bloodline.
They would have the FBI on me if I did something that horrific, if I exterminated a human.
The FBI.
Very nice of them to talk me down so I'm not upset and to listen. But if all you're going to offer is social services, again, the best I can hope to get is, gee, maybe somehow, some way they'll conjure up an oil change for me. Or a battery before it starts getting too cold and I can't start the car at all. I don't.
Yeah, well, take advantage of it, Paul. Clearly you do. So take advantage of it.
No, but that doesn't save my life. That keeps me in a coma in a hospital until someday somebody says enough is enough and they finally just pull the plug. I died on the Ides of March when this company fired me. They murdered me then. I'm just sitting there having been shot full of bullets, bleeding to death for 6 months. I know what it's like. I know what it feels like to be murdered. But like most people who die in a minute or two after the shot, I've had to suffer through it for 6 months. Hence, the reason I refer to human torture. Did they do anything about that?
Most lively dead person I've ever seen.
No. Eden Prairie clearly is not going to be the ones who goes and has a nice talking to with American Musical Supply, sitting up on the hill looking down on them. Those people are going to get up, sit up there, have fun, have a ball, party, go outside, have a cookout. They're going to keep going at it, even as they have murdered a human being in front of the whole world's eyes. Because the people who run Eden Prairie don't care. And with all due respect to the individuals I talked to who showed some kind of concern.
How many times have you done this in this video? They're great people, and with all due respect, they're fine people, very fine people on both sides. But they just couldn't help me, and they're useless in the end. And in the end, they're like, assisting in a murder here.
And talk about, well, let's see what we can do social service-wise. I have 9 years experience with social services. Nothing's going to change. Everything that is my life has...
Paul, where's the shirts coming from? Where's the phone cards coming from? Where's the oil changes coming from? And where is, your car insurance coming from? It's social services, it's foundations, it's charities, it's everything you hate. You're actively back involved in. That's why you disappeared, dude. That is why you disappeared for 2 months. Because you were scrambling to get... So the LARP took a break, and then you had to scramble to get all these people back on your side.
Has already been stolen. It's gone. I can't ever get it back. I have already been murdered.
Yeah, what about Brianna? You were talking so nicely about Brianna the other day. Is she useless, or is she just one of the good ones? Like, the one out of 1,000 that are good?
While I'm still breathing, I'm going to shout and tell the world about this, just like anybody who gets murdered yells and screams and cries out for help and begs for help and wonders why all those witnesses standing around aren't helping. I'm going to go after the perpetrator with everything I've got. I'm going to get as much DNA under my fingernails as I can. So
yeah, he wants to claw their eyes out, and metaphorically speaking, he wants to get all this DNA under his fingernails. It's very aggressive language, Jesus.
But when I'm gone, the competent law enforcement agencies, the federals, can start dealing with these people. And I'm sorry I have to say that about people I was just speaking to in person, but I know enough about human manipulation to understand that if they come up to me and they talk to me like a human being for a while, I cannot let that skew my understanding of what these people are based on their behavior. Dr. Joseph Mengele, the angel of death at Auschwitz.
Oh, boy. I mean, even the good doctor, I think, just let him rest in peace at this point, Paul. You're invoking his name so much you might resurrect him.
What was he known for? With all those twins he did, those sick and twisted this company did, because employment at will is not a license to kill.
Employment at will is not a license to kill.
belongs in a prison. It doesn't matter how they do it. If they kill somebody, they belong in a prison. And nothing of that kind happened yesterday, did it?
Yeah, it's like that pulling down video I did. He was on one of these rants where it's like, they belong in a prison. They belong to be hanging at Nuremberg.
So there you go. That's my field trip to Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Probably the last time I'll ever see that place.
Anyways, yeah, that's the video. Yeah, I think the end of the story is that he's trying to relate a completely unrelatable story to serious authorities. These aren't people who are looking for a laugh. Maybe they are. Maybe they did get a chuckle out of him. But he's trying to relate something very serious on the face of it in a very unserious way, and in a way that's not even close to being digestible to anyone. That you couldn't make that story make sense. So I kind of want to take on that challenge of trying to steelman his position, tell his story in a way that you could possibly, like an Aaron Brockovich way, where there's a story here. It's a bit difficult to tell, but with the right way of phrasing it, you could maybe get someone to listen with a bit of passion and sincerity. Alright guys, that is Eden Prairie laid waste. Paul has claimed final victory. Morally righteous Paul. They're bigots, they're just prejudicial and discriminatory. And yeah, like, I feel like now, like, what's left? Who's left? So there's no lawyers, there's no prosecutors, there's no city prosecutors, there's no city officials. Police won't hear it. They just like refer him like through this endless loop of social service so he can like seek mental help. You know, it's what they're like maybe alluding to without saying it. Yeah, outside of like a larger body like the FBI or something like that, which for some bizarre reason because the FBI, right? They set up Waco, right, which ended up setting up the Oklahoma bombing through Timothy McVeigh. Can someone explain that to me? Like, I don't understand why he has so much reverence for them. Like, if anything, they would be this like large bloated part of the U.S. government that doesn't seem like they do the best job sometimes at all. And he's often talked about Ruby Ridge and Waco and David Koresh and the Branch Davidians. Yeah, I just don't understand it. Why would they be any more trustworthy? I would trust the local cop more than I would trust the feds, but I guess that's where Paul has arrived to? I don't know why. Anyways, guys, that was kind of an infuriating video. Because he's kind of bringing this thing into the real world, and he is like really badgering city officials and police officers and law enforcement with a story that is just, and they want to hear him out, but it's a story, it's just all in bad faith, it's all undigestible, it's all gobbledygook, and they're trying to be like understanding, and he's kind of framing it as they're just, well, they're no better than like some Nazi scientist because they appear to have like smiles and a polite manner about them, but in the end they're just like him. All right, guys, take it easy.